Well, hey, hello everyone. Welcome again to a conversation with one of my great friends. I've been waiting for this conversation for some time, and I'm so excited because you're going to find out. My friend Melanie here is just amazing, and she's fun. She is exciting. She's got so much going on. I'm just excited to have you, Melanie. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. You're one of my mentors as I have been growing and going through personal growth. So thanks for having me on.
Oh man, it's such a privilege and a pleasure. I I know that you've been doing a podcast, but like and you've done some work in leadership. So, but what I'd love for you to be able to do today is just share a little bit about yourself, how you got on this journey, and kind of a little bit just more about yourself.
Gosh, well, I have to go all the way back. you
Oh, I
know,
love it. Yeah.
as I joined John Maxwell team, when
Yep.
he challenged me to say, go back and tell your story. And I thought, well, why does that matter? But
Mm-hmm.
it does. Your
Mm-hmm.
story really, really matters. And so what I understood about my story that was unique to me, right? Everybody's unique in their own way. So what influenced my life? And it started with being involved in my family's tabernacle.
Hmm.
And my great grandfather had built a tabernacle, had people from all over the Midwest in Indiana here come and preach at the tabernacle. And so it was kind of like this mission
Yeah.
back in the 60s. And John Maxwell's father actually preached at this tabernacle here in
Oh
Indianapolis.
gosh, that's
So
so
when
cool.
I started to kind of put my story together, I thought, no wonder I'm so connected to this DNA that I've always felt like there's
Yeah.
something pulling me further.
Yeah.
And from that, my father passed away when I was 5, and
Mm.
his parents were song evangelists.
Okay,
So
yeah.
for me, I went and stepped into traveling with them. Instead of the classic summers of going with your friends and going to camp, I traveled with my grandparents, and we went to church camp.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
traveled every 10 days from one camp to the other. And so I learned a lot about adaptability, about flexibility, about acceptance, just about
Yeah,
having confidence to be able to be in different environments and reach out and connect to people.
yeah.
And so anyway, throughout my life, things transformed, and I was always in leadership roles in school and sports teams. And then I got into my career field and I thought, well, what am I going to do? Right. And so you do things that you are that you can do, right, that are easy to do. You
Right.
go and get a business degree. I started at a bank, and then I ran a transplant company, medical, got into medical, and continued to open my mind to the possibilities of creativity. And
Mm,
what if I took this role, and what could I do with my skills, and how can I influence people?
mm,
And so it's always been inside of me in everything that I've done.
yeah,
And teaching moment, right? So when you find that you get resistance or people become very insecure with your confidence, that's when you have to really understand who you are, because
mm,
that's like the pivotal growth point. And up until 2 years ago, when I decided to join the John Maxwell team and understand deeply personal growth,
yeah.
I just thought, am I that different? Do I think that differently in the
Mm,
world, that I'm stronger than these obstacles,
yeah,
because I would just overcome them and move on and keep pushing and keep deciding to define my own life.
yeah,
And not easy, right? I didn't
yeah.
come from a wealthy family. I didn't come from, I'm an only child. And so it was a lot of times my mom and I, and until she was remarried. And so, but that structure and support, I went to 6 schools before I was in 5th grade. Uh,
Wow.
so so things that I looked at, right? When you start looking into your own story and realizing, why do you have these strengths? Well,
Yeah.
sometimes we're just conditioned for them.
Yep.
And that's why if we tune into that conditioning, that can really help us understand how to use those gifts and be successful a lot easier, right? A lot faster than maybe your friends. You look at some people, you
Yeah.
and I on the same path, and you go, well, but my passion is sports. Well, my passion is journalism. Well, my passion is teaching,
Yeah.
right? And so if you're in your zone, you can accelerate so much faster than anyone else. And so tuning in and being aware to what you have always experienced in your life and what comes easy, that's the key. That's the secret, right? That's
Yeah,
the secret that
yeah.
everybody talks about.
Right,
Um,
right.
but that's kind of where I am in my journey. And so I don't, people say to me, and I love how you opened that up, I do have a lot going on. But because I feel like I have conditioned myself, I didn't just have that classic, you know, one school, one set of friends, one kind of life, one city that I lived in. It gave me the opportunity to experience that newness. And so I love
Mm,
challenges,
yeah.
love challenges. And I go, oh, I can go, excuse me, I can go accomplish that. And so my husband got me this cup the other day.
Ah, I love it. Wonder Woman. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
He was like, I think you need this.
That's awesome. I love that. Oh my gosh. Oh, so I interviewed a lady who is the owner of, or was the owner of an insurance brokerage down in Atlanta, Georgia. And I did a workshop for her team. Well, the John Maxwell team leadership game. And I don't know if
Awesome.
you've ever seen the card that says, if you were a superhero,
Yeah.
who would
What
you
would you
be?
be?
So I that card came up, and you just have to know the room. I think there were 18 women and one guy, and so every one of them said, "We're Wonder Woman." That's who we are. And so that just brought back. And I just interviewed Liz just a little bit ago. So yes, I love that.
You
That's
feel sometimes that you have to have that superpower. You
yeah,
have to
yeah,
have that place that you feel, okay, this is my faith, this is my
yeah.
security, this is what I know who I am, right? When
Hmm.
everything else is going crazy and noises around you, if
Yeah.
you stay centered to
Hmm.
that superpower,
Yeah, yeah,
that gets you
absolutely.
through, right? It's not that imaginary friend. Maybe,
Mhm.
maybe that's why they created those in storybooks.
Right, right. Yeah.
But it does, even as adults, we can lean back on those things that gave us strength in times of difficulty.
Hmm.
And that's what my podcast is about, giving
Yeah,
people the opportunity to overcome those obstacles by just learning
yeah,
from other stories, right? The
yeah.
modern day.
Well, and I love that so much. And I think that sitting down, and you and I were talking about this before we hit record, and I think sitting down with each other to have conversations is such a great thing to do in the times in which we live.
Mhm.
And this is a way that we can sit in on a conversation to find out something about somebody that maybe we didn't know, or listen to somebody's story that really helps us in some way by just listening to the story. I talk about all the time, talk about the power of the mastermind, and how I can be
Mm.
sitting in a group with 8, 10 people. Somebody else is on a hot seat describing their situation, their challenge, and we're asking questions, and all of a sudden, boop, there's a thought that comes into my head that I go, that's the answer that I was looking for, not even related to the conversation. And I think the same thing is true with having these conversations and these podcasts, to be able to share stories so that people can have those aha moments that may or may not even have anything related to what we're doing or saying, but it
Mhm.
just provides them the ability to be able to kind of get lost in the moment and listening into a conversation. And I love hearing your story. And it's funny too that you were saying that, because my grandfather was a part of, probably back in the 50s, the similar path. I mean, he was he became a Christian at a tent revival in
Mhm.
South Whitley, Indiana, of all places.
Wow,
I
there
mean,
we go.
a little tiny place. And then he went to revivals and sang. He was like a song leader. He was very musically inclined. And so when you were talking about your grandfather, there's this connection that I have to that history
Mm.
just because of my own grandfather and his path in the state of Indiana, which is kind of cool too.
So funny.
Now, have you lived in Indiana your entire life?
No, well, I was born in Orlando.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and so my family, they were all from Portsmouth, Ohio originally, and then came over here. And I don't really know the whole story of why we ended up in Indianapolis,
Okay.
um, but then as the family grew, my grandfather was one of 5 children, and he was the oldest. And so as a song evangelist, he kind of they developed the tabernacle and the nursing home, and so it was there for years.
That's so
But
cool.
but he decided to kind of go out and be in God's Bible school, and he was getting ready. He was in the Navy,
Okay.
and he was assigned to go on the USS Indianapolis,
Oh, really?
and they pulled him out because they needed him to sing in this quartet.
Mm,
And so again, think about, your strengths and your faith and kind of your
yeah.
path. If he would not have been committed to his faith and testimony through song, they wouldn't have had given him that opportunity.
Mm,
And he would have
yeah.
died on the USS Indianapolis, and I wouldn't have been here, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that
Right.
one thing, you think about that one decision that changes your life.
Yeah. Not
And
just your life, but the life of generations to come.
everything, right? And so
Yeah.
everything that we do, we have to understand, if we make better decisions, if
Mm,
we have the capacity to stay true, if something's pulling us saying, well, you really should step into that.
mhm, mm.
You should step into that because there is something that's already been designed that's just waiting for you to catch up to it.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about it. How has that awareness impacted your leadership in your corporate role, your executive role? Because you're also an executive leader of a company, and I'm just kind of curious how that awareness of stepping into what you've been designed to do and being committed to that awareness and that
Mm.
thing that you're designed to do. How has that impacted your leadership?
Oh God, that's a great question. I love this question.
Uh,
So, a lot of it is having the belief in yourself, because when you believe that things can be done very easily, and you've kind of witnessed that, you've experienced, that adding value to people is one of the key significant factors in life. And
mhm,
if you are able to do that, again, realizing your strengths, how you do that, and how successful you are at building those relationships, at adding value, the core essence of life is about the benefit, right? What do you
mm,
gain out of the experience? And so, anytime that I've been a leader in a group, in a project, it allowed me the opportunity to take in those personalities that may not have been on board with me, right? That
mm,
may have been challenging,
sure.
to try to get my attitude and my awareness around, like, what is it? And I'm not on the psychology couch right now, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
the awareness of, where are they coming from, and what do they need to become aware of so that we can all achieve.
Mhm,
And so what I've learned, and this is so amazing, but I think about, my challenge in this last position has been, I have millennials and I have very senior influencers that are very successful in their
yeah,
careers, and bringing those attitudes together. And so helping them, right? Part of me as a coach too is trying to help people realize what their strength is and how they can come to a common ground, and maybe find that significance together.
yeah,
And so over the past 6 months, I've been working really hard to just, not give people the answers, not force them into situations, but allow them the opportunity to grow into something that is important together.
mm,
And
mm,
so I think being this level of a coach has helped me so much in my professional career.
mhm,
Just because I don't want to tell them the answers. I know, I feel like I can see more. I can see, if we can design it like this
mhm,
and have value for each other, we're going to gain so much more momentum. And it doesn't happen overnight,
right,
but it does happen.
mhm,
And the respect that each other can bring to the team, it is amazing to look 6 months ago and think what people believed about themselves right, has changed. And so now they're supporting the group in ways that they would take a sword for each other, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that journey. I
Yeah.
love watching people transform into what I've always believed, you know, how do we really from our heart truly want to add value, how to help each other and not have this backstabbing environment. I didn't
Yeah.
want that when I created my work environments. And so it's hard, right? Sometimes you have people in your work teams that you don't have any control over. They just show up.
Right. Right.
But I always say, there's always that one person. It
Right.
doesn't matter if it's
Right.
a team, if it's a club, if it's a Sunday school, if it's
Yeah.
your, your kids' soccer team and it's the coach, whatever, right? We could all
Mhm.
think of that situation.
Yeah.
You go to the coffee house and there's somebody that, is obnoxious and you're like, "Oh, that person could just leave." It's always that one person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what you have to decide is you are the one person that can take control over the awareness of how you react to all of that.
Right.
And
Right.
and through that you can have such a peaceful and successful life.
Mhm.
And so if you can just step into getting rid of the noise, putting the headsets on,
Yeah. Right. Right.
and focusing on what's really important. And
Yeah.
so you can be the catalyst for change, and it can start with you and then it can spread to many many others and impact greatness,
Mhm.
but you have to believe that you have that power to do it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Absolutely. Well, and there's a quote by a guy by the name of Charles Swindoll that talks about attitude, and it's a long thing, but at the essence of it is that there is only one thing that I can control, and that's me and my attitude. I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing a whole big thing, but
Such
it,
truth.
and it's something that even my grandfather was a big influence on me. My dad and my grandfather both, but I spent a lot of time with my grandfather as well later in his life, and in my probably my early 40s. I spent a lot of time with him because I traveled a lot, and I any chance I got to Atlanta, I would always loop in a chance to spend a night with him, and
Mm,
that's been some of the best time of my life being with him, because in those moments, just the everyday moments, he could talk to me and tell me about his life's journey, and how he could control his attitude. It was his attitude about things. When my grandmother was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, it,
mhm,
he could have let it devastate him, but it was his it was his journey, and so he could control his attitude. And I still to this day remember him, just dealing with her. Now he had his moments. Obviously, we're not all perfect here, but for the most part, I could see him, just being in good humor, and he would have, he has a pet name for, or had a pet name for his nickname for her was Tilly, and so he'd say, "Come on, Tilly, let's go, we got to get going here," and and it just was fun to watch him interact with her, and so I just kind of circling back to our attitude. I think
mhm,
that if there's anything that I can convey and that we can convey to those people listening, is that is exactly what we can control. We can't control that one person that may be in a group, or that one person that may be on a team, but I think something that you said a little bit earlier was really um, insightful. And I think I just want to pull it out for a second, because it's looking at what that other person is looking to get out of that situation. So if you're on a team, if you're on some kind of a project, and you've got that one person who may be difficult or difficult
mm,
to deal with, I always like to ask myself, what can I learn from this person? And or how can what are they looking for, and how can I meet that need? And I don't know if you found that or not, but it's almost like you're coming from this place of people being good and have good intentions, and they
mhm.
just maybe don't know how to express that. I don't know if you found that or not.
Yeah, I think What I found sometimes is people, so my experience, people that come into situations that are new
Hmm.
and they try to prove themselves because of maybe insecurities, or
Right.
they're not always aware of why they've been brought in for a project, or you're told different things from whoever is leading or influencing that group,
Yeah.
and so they may not be telling everyone the same thing, right? They may be positioning people
Right.
for to get different results, right? And sometimes you have to do that, right? As a
Right.
leader, sometimes you have to give certain people certain information because that's just the way that things evolve.
Right.
Um, but when you're on the other side, when you're not the leader and you're working in those environments, it is so important that you also believe that you have the capacity to help and add value in that space. It's not just about the leader making a decision,
Hmm.
it's about how you evolve within that group, right? And so I think one of the words as you're talking here, I think about commitment.
Yeah.
People that aren't committed into a process. So you join a group, you join a Sunday school, you join a sports team, right? And you go, "Ugh, I can't deal with this, right? I
Yeah.
can't deal with this attitude. They've got to go."
Yeah.
Well, you're not also committing yourself to being able to work through this process to make it the best experience.
Mm.
Because on the other side of that is growth,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
When we just say, no, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to change jobs. I'm going to change churches. I'm going to change banks. I'm going to change whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because this isn't working. I've
Yeah.
tried to change my attitude. It's not working. It's not me.
Yeah.
But it's about commitment. Are you willing to roll up your sleeves and stay in the game, right?
Yeah.
Sports teams, Wayne Gretzky, my favorite quote is, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
So it's persistence, it's commitment, it's practice.
Yeah.
I played hockey. I was 7 years old and started playing on a boys' league
Oh my gosh, that's
and played
amazing.
for 12 years. And I was the only girl. Now,
Really?
and I didn't say I don't know how to skate. Well, I learned how to skate.
Sure.
I'm going to get hurt if I fall down. Well, you had a bazillion pads on.
Right. Right.
I ended up learning how to play defense and strategize and look at the plays and use my strengths for these big guys that were on my team. And it became my family, right? I didn't let
Yeah.
that overtake the environment of saying, I can't do it. I'm not
Hmm.
able, I don't fit in here. And so, again, that's what I say. I've learned so much about just my journey and thinking, every time that I've done something, I've gone into it and thought, how can I add value? How is this going to help me learn something new? And
Yeah.
so I am conditioned for this, right? I'm just
Yeah.
conditioned for it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that because you've conditioned yourself to be able to be in new situations and really understand that it may be uncomfortable, but what am I going to learn from all of this? And
Yeah.
I think you and I at least have heard the phrase, continue to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep.
And I think that it's weird in some ways because I almost crave that. I almost crave that being uncomfortable because I don't like getting into a routine because then I feel like I'm not growing. I feel like I'm stagnant. And so how do you help your team move forward and kind of move into that discomfort? Because I know that a lot of the like I've got a group called the Emerging Leader Inner Circle, and a lot of those people are newer leaders, and so sometimes they're not so comfortable being uncomfortable. How do you help them get out there and kind of like push them out of the nest?
I think it's pretty simple. You just have to start to connect to those people individually
Hmm.
and find out where their strengths are. So, an example
Mm.
for me, I had a very experienced sales leader, in his senior years, kind of doing a career for like, I want to give impact for the last time, right? I want to do
Mm.
this, I want to be successful. And the ideas about how we treat customers, right? His ideas based on his beliefs of all these years of service was different from the millennials.
Sure.
right? The millennials and their role was different. It was their role wasn't a sales role, it was more support.
Okay.
And so the idea, right, when we come together and say on a whiteboard, how do you believe this situation should be handled?
Yeah.
Right? And so then you try to figure out to give exercises in a work environment where they can add value to each other, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of create that circle of trust
Mm-hmm.
and pulling in scenarios. So if a customer had a problem, right? Then I would pull these two people in together and say, so how do we think we can solve this? What do you
Mm-hmm.
think the best way is? And so I've helped them come together to start being partners in
Mm-hmm.
solving problems instead of, well, he wants to do it this way, they want to do it this way. And so it wasn't about me again saying, okay, we all know what's going to be best, but
Mm-hmm.
but people have to come on that journey and they also have to believe themselves in the solution
Yeah.
or it doesn't work and you have this competitive like, well, I told you to do it this way and you didn't listen and you don't think this way, you have no experience. It's a lot of that back and forth until you get people on that same belief. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we see that the goal, right, the goal is the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we can both have great ideas and we can create solutions around that where we're accountable, where we give the best service, where we're always on top of it, where we're being creative.
Yeah.
And so that's what I just kind of look back and say, wow, I don't get those kinds of calls anymore. Like I don't get those, oh my God, you just gotta, you gotta do something. I don't
Yeah.
get those at all. And I love looking back and saying, was it effective? I think it is being effective, right? And I'm not
Right.
saying that things are perfect and there won't be other complicated issues that come up, but I think the approach in not just providing the solution, but having people that have intelligence, experience, right? I've talked to so many people on my own podcast about millennials and the attitudes that we
Yeah.
older generations perceive,
Right.
right? And Simon Sinek talks about it. And it's
Yep.
not about they haven't experienced it, they just experienced it differently.
Differently. Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
A-
Yeah.
And so it's just like, when we get married, yes, we believe a certain way. That's why we find our spouses and probably we're a little bit opposites in some things. That's
Yep.
why we
Yep.
attract, right?
Right. Exactly.
But you get to that point where you're like, how are we going to solve our financial situations? How are we going to solve our faith situations? How are we going to solve our retirement situations? You
Mm-hmm.
have to it's just like a marriage. Anything else that you do, you're committed to that process. And so in work environments, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing. Now, I've taught the 15 laws of growth
Yeah.
for I think 120 weeks now.
That's awesome. When you said that the other night when we were on Facebook Live, that blew me away, and I think that's so amazing. I love that.
And I think about commitment, right? And I think that's my I don't know, it's a stubborn attitude. It's just I feel like if I'm gaining value and gaining traction and I'm learning more and I'm helping add value,
Hmm.
gosh, it's only, it's not that book.
Yeah.
So it's not that big, but the words in that book you take in differently every time you read it because of what you've experienced up until that point.
So true.
And so you can use that and those lessons
Hmm.
for everything. I use it in my podcast interviews. I use it with my friends. I use it with my family. I use it in my career,
Yeah.
right? Because it all is about commitment, intentionality, awareness. What are we trading off, right? What are we willing to do to expand our growth? What are we willing to do to stretch ourselves? You know,
Yeah.
and that's what I told my team. How will this look if we can accomplish these goals together? How much more empowering we're going to be as an organization,
Yeah.
right? And so
Right.
we're all going to think and believe the same way. We're going to have a process for things that everybody agrees on and everybody has input for. So
Yeah.
that that has helped me in stepping into a bigger role, being able to have the opportunity to build a team that I truly felt could, they were all different. Everybody had different strengths. It wasn't, oh, I need people like this,
Hmm.
right? It was if people had passion to do a job, then let's bring them on the team and utilize their strengths and create the goals together. And
Yeah.
that's what we've done. And that's what's been so amazing.
That's so cool. One of the things you said that made me think that one of the I think keys that I'm hearing you say is that you are empowering your people. You have that belief that the answer is within them. Even when you were talking about bringing two people together to solve a problem or a challenge, the older generation, the younger generation, bringing them together, and that belief is that you have the answers within you, and that comes from coaching, because that's the premise of coaching, is that we do have the answers within us. We just have to become aware of them and conscious to them. And I love that about coaching. And I just sense that that's been your style in your leadership, and as you've built teams and led teams. And I love that. I mean, I think that if I was in a position where I needed to be on a team, I would love to have you as a team leader, because you empower. I mean, I love when a leader empowers me and allows me just to say, go figure it out. You can do it.
Hmm.
um,
It just makes things, it's all that, you can either lead by a stick or a carrot, they say,
yeah.
right? And so we always need these. I think I was on the Belief Hackers, and Donna Rice asked me, well, okay, so you talk about measurement, like that's not a bad thing. You have to have measurement goals. And I said, no, I think it's the way, the approach that we take with it, right?
Hmm.
Everybody needs to be accountable, but it's having that capacity to say, how are you leading the organization? Are you, even my directors work with 1099s. A 1099 is an independent rep that has maybe multiple other focuses, but
Yeah.
they were asking them to carry our product to be successful. And
Hmm.
so how do they inspire those workers?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so there's multiple things that we have to focus on internally and externally, and the customers. And so if my leaders do not have that confidence to know that I support them, that I give them the ability to make those decisions that
Hmm.
are going to, that are going to be, of course, in line with our missions and our goals.
Yeah.
But they don't come to me and say, oh, I've got to do this. They want to communicate. They want to provide information. And
Yeah.
that's what every leader wants, isn't it? We always say, why don't people communicate with me? Why don't I get this? Why don't I get these reports? Well, if you're not a connected leader,
Mm.
you're going to have to manage with a stick,
Yeah.
because people are very fearful of you and they don't want you to be on the journey. They're afraid you're going to tell them, you don't approve of this.
Mm.
When, gosh, if you just step back and let people step into their journey, man, it's so rewarding, it's so inspiring, it's so empowering for everybody, for me, for them, for our customers. It's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah. You just hit on something that just yesterday we were talking about in the Emerging Leader Inner Circle, being a connected leader and connecting with other people. And kind of to your point, I was talking about, how to connect, because as we know, John wrote a book called Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And so that connection is the real key. That's the secret, if you will, is to connect with people. And I love the way you said that, because if you're not a connected leader, you said, people are going to be afraid of you, because you're going to have to rule and manage with the stick, and instead of empowering people. And that connection, I think, is such a key thing to get out of this conversation, is that connecting with people not only helps you to have influence with them, but it also helps you to empower them too, because of that connection.
Mhm.
I love that. I know we could probably talk all day, because I love this. This is a great conversation. I want to make sure that I do two things. Number one, I want to talk a little bit real quickly about your podcast, because you do have a podcast called Everyday Leaders. Tell people a little bit about that and what got that started.
Yeah. So, well, we all say when we get to a certain age, we're going to do something fun. And
Yep.
for me, it wasn't even that. It was just, okay, I am turning 50 and I was so inspired with my journey and I wanted to reach out to people. And so I thought, do I do 50 days getting up to my 50th year? And I thought, that's not going to give any impact. Who's going to listen to me? But I did realize that I had a passion for journalism, that I
Mm.
had a husband that's a producer in media. And so we talked about a podcast. And I
Cool.
said, wait, January 12th is my birthday. On my 50th year, I had 50 weeks left to do something. So I created this theme, 50 in 50,
Yep.
which was 50 leaders in 50 weeks, everyday people, people that were experiencing things, overcoming obstacles that we all overcome
Yeah.
or try to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just about connecting their stories through this intimate environment of podcasting to create a theme.
Yeah.
And so from my first year, I hosted a leadership summit. So I had guests from the podcast. My dream when I began it was not just to do the podcast, but I wanted to take those people to be in a live environment, to be able to influence and inspire people.
I love it.
So I held that on March 2nd of this year. And then I've continued. And this year I've been connected to an amazing group of people that, I say, yeah, they're everyday leaders too, but these are people that are connecting to me through LinkedIn, through
Amazing.
Facebook, through just relationships of, hey, you've got to get this person on your program because it's exactly your platform.
Yeah.
And so, I
Nice.
say next year on February 29th of 2020 is one extra day that God has put on that calendar for us to invest in ourselves. And so that's the day that my leadership summit will happen for 2019
I
uh,
love it.
guest. And so I'm not sure if we're going to have it at the art museum again. I would like to, but we're just trying to think of the format, because people got so much out of it, and people that came to the conference are in some of my workshops now, and we're doing
Very nice.
leadership development and growth, and they're changing and transforming. And they look at me and say, we've just gone through 15 weeks of this 15 laws of growth,
Yeah.
and our lives are transforming. And I'm like, I know. I
Yeah.
mean,
So cool. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
and so it brings it all into the things that we love. If we're passionate, if we practice those things in our lives,
Yeah.
that's who we are, right? That's not like we turn this off at night. If we become who we're supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
everything in life just is easy and it fits, and it's your character, it's your responsibility to the community, and things are even growing into the podcast that wait to see what's next.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Gosh, there are so many thoughts going on in my head right now. I think I could just do your comment about being who you are and just practicing these things. And it's something that for me the practice is the beautiful thing. I was just talking with somebody yesterday about my practice or my habit of going to the gym, and I know I'm probably a sick person, but I love going to the gym. There are some days not so much as others, but those habits are what drive me. And those habits are what I think, as we begin to be intentional with our growth, as we practice new things, as we learn new habits, that's what I think is brings joy to life. And it also brings fulfillment as well.
Mm.
Um, One of the last things that I always like to ask people, and what's coming, because you and I have this love for the Notre Dame sign that says "Play like a champion" today. It's sitting right over there on my wall. What does playing like a champion mean to you, Melanie?
Oh gosh, playing like a champion means getting your mindset to create your environment, to
Mm,
have the team in your life that can take you through
mm,
every obstacle. And you can look back at that team and you can decide whether you're going to win or lose every single day.
mm-hmm.
And if you win, the success, the rewards, the ease of your life will be complete success. If you decide that your team is not going to commit, is not going to be aware, is not going to support, it's your decision,
Mm,
right? You create those people in your life that become your team.
yeah.
And if you decide correctly, if you make those intentional decisions, if you get rid of the toxic people, if you put those great inspirational mentors around you, you can be the champion of your life
Mm,
today. You can do this. And so I think it comes down to a very basic, belief in You have to say, I'm okay, I'm committed. I can put these people that are going to lift me and raise me.
Mm.
And doing that every single day, your team may change. You may have to get rid of some of those players,
Right.
but at the end of the day, you will become a champion in everything that you do.
I love that. I love that. Wow, this has been such an amazing conversation, and I just I'm so I wish that we had more time because literally I think there's so many places that I think we could have gone with some of the things that we talked about, just in leadership and passion and in fulfillment in life, and that's really why I love doing these conversations. Is there's a benefit for people that are watching, yes, but there's also a benefit that I get too just by being a part of this conversation. And I'm just selfishly, that's so cool. I really love it. So
It's
thank you so
awesome.
much for being on.
Be a
Yeah.
Wonder Woman.
Be a Wonder Woman. Yes, exactly. I love that. Thanks so much for being here, Melanie. Tell people where they can get in touch with you and where they can find your podcast and the things that you're doing. Any programs that you're doing. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So the day before my leadership summit last year, we were able to auction and we won the bid for everydayleaders.com. So
Nice.
that's the website that I have, everydayleaders.com. You can just go to that. I have got all kinds of things that are happening. You can get a hold of the podcast that way. You can actually submit a form to be on the show.
Hmm.
And we will send you the calendar link, but it has all of my programs, the leadership game, like we talked about. I offer that as well, and coaching. There's a lot of different services on there. So go to everydayleaders.com, and I'd love to connect to anyone.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you're not connected with Melanie, like on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, make sure you reach out because she's on all the platforms. And gosh, I just thank you so much, Melanie. This has been fantastic. Thanks for
Thank
being here.
you. Yes, thank you, David, so much. Have a great week.
You as well. Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye bye.